Evening, Guardians, or I guess morning for a lot of you, depending on when this goes up, as we're now only hours away from the end of a 10-year saga. I just wanted to take some time to reflect a little on my time with Destiny. This is something I wanted to do a while back, but between time constraints with work and Godslayer being the focus of my last few weeks, I just didn't have the time, so forgive me if this video is a little rushed. And in the future, maybe I'll do a more in-depth and hopefully less scripted video on this topic. But I've been playing Destiny for over a decade now, and it would feel wrong to not talk about my history with this game and why I love it so much and why it's the only game out there I've put more than 5,000 hours into. Technically more than 7,000 if we include Destiny 1 and time spent on console as well. I love Destiny, I really do. Even when it frustrates me, even when it's at its low points, I keep coming back. And I've never had another game I feel as passionate about as Destiny, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to reflect on the truly insane time I've had with this game. And as a quick note, I'm afraid I have hardly any footage at all from D1 or D2, from back before I started doing content creation, so most of the gameplay you'll see in the background will be mostly newer gameplay. But going back a ways, the year is 2013, and a much younger version of myself is watching E3 back when it was, well, still around and was still an incredible event. So good, in fact, that myself and a number of my friends would make sure our day was clear just so we could watch it and talk about it. And that year, a number of games caught my attention. Titanfall, The Division, The Witcher 3, and of course, Destiny, the former Halo dev's newest creation. I remember watching that gameplay and being intrigued enough that I decided to just keep an eye on it. It was very different from what I expected from Bungie. It really, at the time, looked like something like Borderlands, and I already knew I loved me a good looter shooter. Fast forward a little while, and I played the Destiny 1 open beta on my old-ass Xbox 360, and I enjoyed it enough that I knew I wanted to play it on what was, at the time, next gen. So I took some money that, honestly, I didn't really have at the time, and I bought a white PS4 that came with Destiny. I went home, set up my new console, and eagerly jumped into Destiny. Over the next few days, I played through the campaign, jumped into PvP, went through the strike playlist, explored the various patrol zones, and I was disappointed. First off, the campaign was a mess, with a story that left dozens of questions, so much so that Elsie saying,
"I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain,"
really became something of a meme. PvP was okay, but at the time not really enough to keep me engaged, and the D1 grind was brutal, more so than Destiny 2 by a long shot. Getting your character up to an appropriate power level was just not fun. And you can look up stories about the loot cave if you want to know what that was like. Destiny 1 was bad, really bad. It was not a good game at release. I occasionally hear some victims of nostalgia talk about like a sense of mystery that came with D1 at release. Believe me when I tell you the only mystery vanilla D1 had was where the rest of the game was. And I nearly gave up on it entirely. In fact, I was borderline fully on the game's hate train for a while. But Vault of Glass dropped, and while at the time I was not really able to raid, as most of my friends simply moved on from Destiny for the reasons I just listed, I did read about it. 14 hours. That's how long the first ever Vault of Glass clear took back then, and that piqued my interest. Now listen, in my solo play experiences, while I don't mind a challenge, it's not something I actively look for, but when I'm playing co-op, there are few things as truly fun to me as a brutally difficult co-op experience. So Vault was enough to make me keep an eye on Destiny, and in the meantime, I just kind of moved on to other games. I did, of course, play Dark Below, and while most people seem to really hate Dark Below, I was just fairly neutral to it. I enjoyed it enough, didn't love it, didn't hate it. I played House of Wolves then and had a much better time there for a few reasons. I enjoyed the campaign, Prison of Elders was very fun at the time, and I did honestly love the setting in the Reef and the Vestian outposts and all that, but even then it really just wasn't enough to suck me in permanently. But that changed with one expansion, The Taken King. The Taken King has legendary status in the Destiny community, and with good reason. It came with an incredible new setting in the form of the Dreadnought, it had a great campaign, added a ton of new loot to the game, and among many other things, it gave me my favorite Destiny 1 raid, and what is still one of my all-time favorite raids, King's Fall. Taken King turned Destiny 1 into one of my regular games. I loved everything about it. Rise of Iron came out after, of course, and while it was a good DLC, I admit I just don't remember nearly as much about it as I do Taken King, but regardless, I was fully invested in D1 at that point. Fast forward again, and Destiny 2 was announced, and I was stoked. After how much D1 had improved, I was unbelievably excited for Destiny 2. I took the day off to play it, and again, I was disappointed. Destiny 2 was a bad game at launch, an extraordinarily bad game. I think that people's nostalgia has maybe been a little too kind to the Red War. Yeah, it had a cohesive story, unlike Destiny 1's base campaign, but it was just very mid. Like, Gaul just felt like a cheap Thanos knockoff, at least to me, and you spent a significant amount of time in the campaign playing without your light, which really just made it feel like a bog-standard first-person shooter. It was boring. Sure, it had its moments, like looking back, that first encounter with Mithrax was some fantastic foreshadowing. The mission on the Almighty was also incredible, and I'll always fondly remember the feeling of flying past the sun with Destiny's always incredible soundtrack blaring through my headset. And of course, the speaker delivered one of the hardest lines in gaming history.
Devotion inspires bravery. Bravery inspires sacrifice. Sacrifice leads to death. So, feel free to kill yourself.
But other than that, I just wasn't impressed. The campaign aside, our movement had been slowed substantially. Instead of having special weapons, we had a double primary system, and shotguns, sniper rifles, and fusion rifles were just turned into heavy weapons. This just made the game as a whole feel intensely slow, and this was in PvP as well. The slow movement, coupled with how base time to kill had been drastically increased, on top of some pretty punishing SBMM, also made the PvP feel awful. And endgame just wasn't much better. Leviathan, the first raid we had in D2, was okay, but not nearly as impactful as Vault of Glass in D1. And my raid team, who I'd been regularly doing D1 raids with prior to D2's release, just kind of seemed to give up on it because none of us were really all that engaged in it. And Trials of the Nine, vanilla D2's version of Trials of Osiris, really just felt every bit as bad as the rest of PvP. Plus, every weapon in the game, every single one of them, dropped with fixed rolls, and there was no weapon crafting, so there was absolutely nothing to grind for either. Vanilla Destiny 2 was a disaster, a complete disaster. Disappointment isn't a strong enough word to describe how I felt. I was crushed because I grew to love D1, and I was furious because it really seemed like Bungie didn't learn a single lesson from Destiny 1's release, because vanilla D2 was genuinely worse than D1 could ever hope to be. And I gave up. I dropped Destiny 2 completely, uninstalled it from my PS4, and just said I wasn't touching it again. And I genuinely thought the game would be dead in 3 months. Yes, I saw the trailers to Curse of Osiris and Warmind, and they honestly did not interest me at all. I remember seeing the early trailers to Forsaken, and with my favorite character now being killed off as well, I still had no interest. But I got dragged back in, this time by a friend. My friend, who you've seen in some of the first videos I ever uploaded to YouTube, had bought a PS4 and was just looking for a chill shooter he could play, and at the time Destiny 2 and all of its DLCs were on sale and he bought it. I remember him coming to me and telling me I needed to buy it. I laughed at him, and he told me to trust him, that it was a completely different game now, and I relented. While I was still skeptical, to be sure, even truly awful games can be fun if you're playing them with a friend, right? So I bought the DLC pack and fired up Destiny 2. I was lord, it was genuinely like stepping into a brand new game. Our movement was better, we had special weapons again, we had new supers thanks to Forsaken, and even PvP felt exponentially better. Plus, Forsaken had a very good campaign, one that felt personal due to the story being focused around avenging the death of a friend. And it brought us new supers for each class, and brought us the Tangled Shore and the Dreaming City for some amazing new locations. After only a couple of days, I fell completely in love with Destiny all over again. It not only became a regular game for me, it became my main game. Destiny 2 replaced Skyrim as my favorite game of all time. After that, I slowly started getting into PvP, learning the lore, learning about weapon rolls and whatnot, so on and so forth, and I've been playing ever since. Eventually, I did move from PS4 over to PC and started playing full-time on PC after getting all the DLCs. Fast forward to now, I still play Destiny basically every day. I know in my other videos I often express frustration towards the game and towards Bungie, but that doesn't mean I dislike the game. Even with its current issues and the many issues we've had, especially over the last couple of years, particularly in PvP, I still have fun playing it. I get frustrated because I remember what eras in Destiny such as Taken King or Forsaken feel like. Over the years, Destiny's been a game with many ups and many downs, and often I think we've had more downs than ups, particularly with the bar that Forsaken set. Like Shadowkeep released, and it was okay. The campaign just kind of felt like a fetch quest. It had its moments, such as seeing a pyramid ship in person for the first time, or the cutscenes of Eris trying to deal with the nightmares of her old fire team. It had some okay strikes, and I actually do quite like Garden of Salvation as well, and going back to the moon was a nice blast of D1 nostalgia. But other than that, it was fairly uninteresting. Beyond Light gave us the Darkness subclasses, and Europa was cool, and Deepstone Crypt is a good raid, but again the campaign was long and still very just fetch questy. Plus, of course, Stasis made PvP borderline unplayable for quite a long while, and as I've said before, I do think the Darkness classes have just been bad for PvP as a whole. Then, of course, Witch Queen dropped, and while the DLC was good, it was the start of a very rough couple of years for the game. Then Lightfall, well, we all know what happened there. So why do I keep playing? Because Destiny offers a truly just unique experience that cannot be found in any other game. I have played hundreds of different MMOs and shooters over the years, and none of them even come close to just scratching that Destiny itch. The world and universe, the gameplay, the moment-to-moment action-focused PvE, and the truly unique PvP that plays unlike any other shooter out there. There is nothing in the gaming world quite like it, and when Destiny's in one of those up periods, it genuinely feels like it is the single best game ever created. And when I'm having fun, and I mean truly having fun with Destiny, there's nothing like it. It sucks me in and consumes me entirely. It becomes all I can think about when I'm not playing. But when it's in a bad state, oh man, is it rough. It gets really rough. But those high periods are so insanely good that it keeps me coming back. And on top of that, probably most importantly, I have some truly incredible memories associated with this game. Root of Nightmares was actually my first ever day one raid. I'd always wanted to do one, but this was the first one that I was actually able to do. I didn't have any time constraints at the time, and I had a crew that was actually ready to go and give it a shot. Day one Ron was pretty rough. Me and the folks I was playing with really just went in not expecting anything other than to just screw around and have some fun, and we were expecting a day one experience more like Val, so we didn't really expect to clear it. But when we started making some progress, we realized, oh shit, we might actually be able to do this. And so after optimizing our loadouts and helping some of the others optimize theirs, we committed. It was tough. I think I was in that raid for around 25 hours or so. We had a couple of people who were using less than optimal builds and loadouts. We had people drop every now and then due to just being tired and would have to LFG new teammates, so on and so forth. And by the end, I was exhausted. but I had fun. Despite the long hours and frustration, that was some of the most fun I have ever had in a video game. And I've made friends playing Destiny. Despite it not really being a particularly social game in a lot of ways, I've made friends who I play with fairly regularly, doing everything from raids and dungeons to Iron Banner and Trials. Like WaveGod, who I mentioned in my recent Ace of Spades build video, and his friends. I play with them all the time, and we always have a blast. Or Trev, who you've seen in some of my videos playing PvP with me. He helped me go flawless for the first time ever, and we still play PvP together frequently. I mean, hell, my fiance and I are together because I got them into Destiny, and playing together is how we got to know each other. And on a more personal note, despite how frustrated I do get with Destiny at times, it's been something of a mental health haven for me more than once over the years. The beautiful worlds and music, the characters and their stories and the lore, the constant messages of hope against all odds, firing up Destiny and having a drink and some laughs with friends while running GMs, raids, or just doing dumb stuff in PvP. This game has been something of a safe haven for me, more than once over the years. Like, I remember back in Destiny 1, I want to say maybe a year, a little less before Destiny 2's release, a friend of mine invited me to join his raid crew. And I had barely been able to do any raiding in D1 at all. At the time, I just wasn't really aware of LFGs and hadn't bothered looking, so it was really very rare for me to be able to play any sort of endgame content. But I jumped in, I joined him and his friends, and started raiding regularly with them. And that was during what was a particularly just kind of rough time for me. I was just in a really bad place with my mental health as a whole. I'd come out of a breakup that was very hard on me, and life in general just wasn't going my way. And jumping into raids with these guys actually helped tremendously. It meant I had something to look forward to at the end of each day and helped keep me from drowning in my own head. They have pretty much all stopped playing since then, but I still remember those nights frequently and very fondly. Most, if not all of them, have stopped playing Destiny 2. They moved on during Vanilla D2, and as far as I know, they haven't come back. But if any of them see this, I do want to thank them. They'll never really know how much playing Destiny with them helped me during that time. And Wombat, if you see this, thank you for that invitation. There are so many reasons I love Destiny. The thrill of beating a raid successfully for the first time.
Shoot it here in a couple minutes.
Hold on.
I'm shooting now.
Shoot it, shoot it, shoot it.
Shooting now.
Hurry, hurry, hurry.
I did it.
Nice.
All right.
Yes, boys, amazing work.
We did it!
Let's
did it,
fucking
motherfucker.
Go!
Good fucking work, everyone. Holy shit. Seeing new worlds when an expansion releases, spending hours trying to make a new build work in PvP, and the feeling when it finally just clicks into place. The countless late nights with friends laughing my ass off as we beat our heads against that one encounter we're struggling to get past, or the feeling of victory when one of them pulls off something that wins the day.
Oh, he's gonna fly off.
Oh, yep. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Fuck yeah!
The feeling of just raw power that comes with having that perfect build that just unleashes absolute destruction in a GM, or having that raid exotic drop after countless runs. Destiny has meant a lot to me over the years, and it still does. I'm insanely excited for the final shape, and though I am sad to see the light and dark saga end, I'm excited to see what comes after as well. I love this game. Even when it frustrates me, even when it pisses me off, I always come back to it, and I always manage to have a good time. When I've been through hard times, Destiny's always been there for me, and I hope it will continue to be for years to come. And as we approach the final fight in a story that's been a part of my life for 10 years now, regardless of what comes after, I will always be grateful for the amazing times I've had with this game and for the friends I've made along the way. Final Shape is only hours away now, and I cannot wait to jump into the fray with my friends for one last fight. But for now, Guardians, take care of yourselves, and I hope you all enjoy what's coming as much as I hope I do. I'll see you all on the battlefield. Have a good night.